Welcome back in. Today we're going to discuss some of my must-draft kickers for the 2025 fantasy season. We'll also go over our top 24 kicker rankings, as well as a few tips on what you should be doing to identify what kicker you look to draft, whether that be somebody you're looking to draft for the entire season or somebody that is going to be more, if you're more of a streaming option type of player. So let's go ahead and get right into it. And we're going to start with things that I think you should definitely be looking at in terms of when you're selecting a kicker. I think the first thing that stands out to me is always going to be third down efficiency rank. How do teams do on third down? Obviously, teams that can sustain drives, keep moving the football down the field are going to give themselves better opportunities to score points and kick field goals. Also correlated to that is high team pass volume / pace of play. 7 of the top 12 kickers came from offenses that were top half in passing yards, and 8 came from offenses that were in top 15 of third down conversion rate last season. Vegas implied team total is also very useful when it comes to whether it's season long, which you could find now, or on a week-to-week basis if you're streaming a kicker. Just go on to Google, type in week whatever, in a Vegas applied team total for whatever week, and then that's all you really need to look at. And really, anything over 22 fantasy points per game and above is that what we should be looking at. And really, what I want to point out here is every year when it comes to ADP, it's wrong. It's really wrong. And there's so much volatility when it comes to drafting kicker. Over the past 2 seasons, only 5 kickers who were drafted among the top 12 actually finished as a top 12 option. And so that is definitely something we should be taking into consideration. So whenever you get upset when you don't see your favorite kicker or a kicker you think should be, chances are that year over year, those guys aren't actually finishing among the top 12 in terms of kickers. So somebody that I will say that hits that criteria, let's go ahead and start off with the rankings here, and that is going to be Brandon Aubrey. He has now finished back-to-back seasons as the number 1 kicker in fantasy football. He is one of just 4 kickers last year to average double-digit fantasy points. He is the only kicker to score double-digit fantasy points in back-to-back seasons. The dude obviously has a monster leg. 28 of his 47 field goals last year or 40 or 50 yards. Aubrey is just on a different planet right now and is the unquestioned number 1 kicker in fantasy football. Next up is going to be Cameron Dicker. He's also finished a top 12 kicker each of the last 2 seasons. Dicker has proven to be consistently reliable option year over year. Last year, he finished the kicker 3 fantasy points per game, averaging 10.5. He converted 93% of his field goals. He converted 11 field goals from 40-plus yards and another 9 from 50-plus yards. Chargers offense has a little bit more firepower in 2025, which should lead to more scoring opportunities after they just finished 19th pass yards, but 13th in third down conversion rate last season. So Cameron Dicker is my number 2 kicker. And my number 3 is going to be Fairbairn. Finished 2024 as the kicker 4, averaging 10.1 fantasy points per game. Now, he was league average in terms of his conversion rate of just 85%, but what made him so valuable were the 13 field goals of 50-plus yards. The Texas offense was middle of the road in third down conversion rate, and they also ranked 17th in implied team total heading into this season. Although I do think with new offensive coordinator Nick Caley and additions to this offense, this team should take a step forward in 2025, leading to more opportunities for Fairbairn. And he's just going to be consistently reliable. Again, another kicker that has finished top 12 in each of the last 2 seasons. Next up is going to be Chase McLaughlin. McLaughlin struggled early in his career, bounced around the league over his first 4 years, but that is until he found a home with the Bucs. Since joining the Bucs, he sports an impressive 93.7% field goal conversion rate. Even more so, he's one of the best kickers from 50-plus yards. He ranks top 5 in kicks from that range. It also helps that he kicks for one of the best offenses in the league right now. The Bucs ranked first last year in third down conversion rate, and Vegas has them with the 7th highest implied team total heading into 2025. Next up is going to be Jake Bates. Bates is the perfect example of having a kicker on a potent offense. He finished last season as the kicker 7, averaging 9.5 fantasy points per game, but he did so only attempting 29 field goals, ranked 21st. What really carried him, though, was the 67 PATs, which was first in the league. We will see how things will change this year with Ben Johnson now moved on to Chicago and new offensive coordinator John Morton taking over. And also, you always have to factor in Dan Campbell's willingness to go for it on 4th down, which is going to limit Bates' ceiling on a week-to-week basis some. Next up is going to be Wil Lutz, currently being drafted as the kicker 10, but Lutz finished 2024 as the kicker 8, converting 91% of his field goals. He was also 3rd in field goals of 40-plus yards, and he was also top 6 in PATs. There's a lot of excitement surrounding the Broncos offense this season, and Lutz should be a solid option at a pretty reasonable cost. Next up for me is going to be Harrison Butker. Butker's coming off a season where he missed time due to injury. Last season, he missed multiple weeks. Whenever he was on the field, he only averaged 7.7 fantasy points per game. He only had 2 field goals of 50-plus yards. However, though, since 2017, Butker still remains one of the more reliable fantasy options. He ranks 2nd in fantasy points and 4th in field goal attempts with a 90.1% conversion rate. There have been plenty of concerns, though, with this Chiefs offense over the last few seasons, but I think this might be the most talented offense in terms of overall weapons that we've seen with Patrick Mahomes. There's been a huge emphasis this offseason about wanting to move the ball down the field and take more deep shots this year. Rashee Rice is obviously going to be dealing with some sort of suspension, but when he's back, you're going to have him healthy. Second year, Xavier Worthy, aging Travis Kelce. But fourth round pick, Jalen Royals, I think has definitely been standing out in camp. He has looked phenomenal so far. He might have a much bigger role than people expect. Juju Smith-Schuster. So I think this offense could actually be better and more explosive, this season, especially once Rashee Rice comes back from whatever suspension he's going to have. So I do think Butker, who I have a little bit lower the consensus here, there's some concerns because of the injury concerns that he's had over the past couple seasons, but he still should be a pretty solid option for you. And then Chris Boswell here. Boswell was the man last season. He's a great example of why you shouldn't be drafting kickers early. He finished as the kicker 2 last season, averaging 11.2 fantasy points per game. He scored just 1 fantasy point less than Brandon Aubrey. He's also the second highest field goal rate with 93.2% of his field goals. He also connected on the second most 50-plus yards last season. Boswell is currently being drafted at kicker 11, which is right around where I have him. There's some concerns with him because he hasn't finished as a top 12 kicker since 2021. Now, one of those seasons was shortened by injury, so that should be mentioned. I do think Boswell, just in terms of overall talent, I think he's one of the better kickers in the league. But you just get really nervous with this offense. He had to run really pure last year with the 50-plus yard attempts that he was able to get. We'll see how this offense looks this year with Aaron Rodgers, with additions of DK Metcalf this year, some changes on their offensive line, obviously Caleb Johnson at halfback. We'll have to see how this offense looks this year. But he definitely could still be somebody that is still a top 10 option for people this year as long as he stays healthy. Because now let's move over here to some of my must-draft kickers. Now, these are kickers being drafted outside of the top 12. We're going to start with a kicker that, quite frankly, I was shocked where he's going. But we're going to start with Matt Gay, who is now with the Commanders. But anyone who followed our kickers content last year knows I was pounding the table last year for Austin Seibert, who averaged damn near 13 fantasy points per game. Now, he was replaced because he went on IR late last year, and then he was a free agent after this year, and they decided not to bring him back. They went out and signed Matt Gay to a $4.25 million fully guaranteed contract for just 1 year. But Matt Gay is coming off a down year. We only converted 83% of his attempts, but he still managed to finish as a kicker 14. Now in Washington, there's a lot to like about the situation. I don't tell you how good this offense was last year. They were top 6 in third down conversion rate, and all signs point to this offense being just as good, if not maybe a little bit better in 2025. And something we should look at, Dan Quinn has routinely been top 5 in the league in terms of field goal attempts year over year. I mean, we saw this last year with Austin Seibert, who attempted 30 field goals in just 9 games last year. I think there's a ton of upside and a ton of ceiling here with Matt Gay. Of course, we're always going to be a little bit nervous because he's always struggled in terms of his accuracy. But there's going to be plenty of opportunity here for Matt Gay. And that's why I have him as my kicker 4. Next up, let's move over to a rookie this season. And that's going to be Tyler Loop, currently being drafted at kicker 15. He was a 6th-round pick in 2025, and now he's replacing, obviously, one of the best kickers we've ever seen, but obviously has some off-field issues, and that is Justin Tucker. And they also just released another kicker that was battling in camp, and that is John Hoyland. And this leaves Tyler Loop as the only kicker now on the roster. Loop was a 4-year starter at Arizona, capped off his final season with honorable All-Big 12 mention. He also set school records with a 62-yard field goal and his 84% conversion rate. The situation will be one we definitely want to monitor through camp and preseason. John Harbaugh's kind of talked about this, that it's his job to lose at this point. And so if he's able to make it through camp and preseason, I mean, I think he's definitely somebody we should have on our radars. Obviously, the Ravens have one of the best offenses in the league. They were the second highest third down conversion rate last year. They also have the second highest applied team total points per game this season as well. So there's a lot to like with Tyler Loop right now. Next up is going to be Will Reichard. This one I also don't understand. While he finished as the kicker 16, but that's because he only played in 13 games last year. He was still top 5 in fantasy points per game last year, averaging 10.1 fantasy points per game. He obviously has a huge leg. He finished top 7 with 8 field goals of 50-plus yards. Reichard also checks all the boxes we're looking for in a kicker. It certainly helps that he kicks over half his games inside a dome. While the offense has its questions with J.J. McCarthy taking over as the starting quarterback, we have seen year over year Kevin O'Connell's offense tends to produce points, and Reichard can improve on his 80% conversion rate. This is a very good late-round flyer and somebody that I have as my kicker 9, so I'm well ahead of consensus on Will Reichard. Next up for me is going to be Chad Ryland. If there's any Patriots fans listening to this, you probably have PTSD because he was absolutely dreadful in 2023, got released because he had a 64% conversion rate. But last season, given another opportunity with the Cardinals, in the 13 games last year, he averaged 9.6 fantasy points per game, which would have been tied with Chase McLaughlin as a top 6 kicker. His 87% conversion rate was also top 9 among qualifying kickers. Arizona's offense also ranked last year 8th in third down conversion rate and 13th in applied team total heading into 2025. Ryland stole this job away from Matt Prater last year and really never looked back. He's another guy that kind of checks most of the boxes we were looking for in a kicker, and also gets to kick in half his games in a dome. Ryland is currently kicker 19. I think that is mispriced for where he should be going. Lastly, Brandon McManus, kicker 17. Despite it only kicking in 11 games last season for the Packers, he still finished 12th in fantasy points per game and is the most accurate kicker, converting 95% of his attempts. McManus makes for another solid streaming option, and also it was also a top 12 kicker in 2023 as well. So I think Brandon McManus, I really like this Packers offense. I think the team throws the ball a lot more. Jordan Love ended up getting hurt last year, which really hurt this offense. So Brandon McManus is also another kicker that you can have on your radar for streaming kickers. Now, again, some other streaming options you can look at. Josha Karty, kicker 20 right now in ADP. He's another second-year kicker that I have some interest in. Karty started last season as a bit of an unknown, but finished as a kicker 15 overall, averaged 8 fantasy points per game, 85% conversion rate last year. But he only converted 10 field goals of 40 or 50-plus yards, which is a little bit discouraging. I will say Sean McVay is another head coach that year over year finishes in the top 10 of field goal attempts every single season. So that is definitely something we can look at. Karty has the leg to be able to kick longer field goals. He connected on a 58-yarder last season. If this offense can be better than what it was last year, especially for all the injuries they had, especially after adding Devontae Adams, and if Matthew Stafford can get over this back issue, Karty could be another really solid streaming option. Cam Little is another guy I want to talk about. Little was someone I really liked last season. Deep sleeper overall. It was a solid rookie campaign, converting 93% of his field goals. Though he only averaged 7.4 fantasy points per game, a lot of that was because of just how bad the offense was. Now, with Liam Cohen coming in, taking over as the head coach, I think this offense is going to be one that we definitely want to invest in. And I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities here. And I think Cam Little could actually finish as a top 10 kicker this season if this offense is able to take a step forward. Now, lastly, I know some people are going to wonder why I have Jake Elliott where I have him, or Tyler Bass, or Evan McPherson, because those guys are always drafted among the top 12. And as I mentioned earlier, those guys haven't really been routinely finished among the top 12, but every single year they seem to be drafted that way. First, Jake Elliott was really bad last year. He only converted 77% of his field goals and only converted one field goal of 50-plus yards last year. Then you factor in the Eagles' propensity to go for it on fourth and short situations, what makes it Elliott a complete boom or bust. Someone that I'm probably just going to avoid drafting at kicker 7 overall. Next up is going to be Evan McPherson, is also very similar to Jake Elliott, who was really bad last year. Converted only 72% of his field goals, which is well below league average of 84%. Both Elliott and McPherson kicked for 2 of the best offenses in the league. So I think they're at least safer floor plays, but I just don't think they have much of a ceiling. And for me, I'm not really all that excited about drafting someone like Evan McPherson again, someone that is being drafted, close to the top 12. And then Tyler Bass, while I definitely think he's an objectively better option than the last 2 guys I just talked about, he only had 5 games last year where he was a top 12 kicker. And most of his production came from kicking PATs with the third most. He also was only asked to kick 11 field goals of 40-plus yards. And we have kickers on this list that played 4 or 5 less games than he did, that had more opportunities than that. So I think Tyler Bass is a safer option in floor play. But again, I just don't think there's enough ceiling there on a week-to-week basis. So that being said, I think there's some other kickers that I could go either way with. Cairo Santos, I think, is kind of an interesting streaming option as well, especially if this Bears offense can get better. Jake Moody, I kind of go back and forth with. He was actually somebody that was drafted as a top 12 kicker last year. He really struggled a lot of times last year, but this offense, I think, is being undervalued this year. It could be somebody that could bounce back in a pretty good way. So let me know in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on the kickers? Let me know in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on these kickers? Is there anybody that I missed, or is there somebody that you're a little bit higher on than I am? Let me know in the comment section below. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.